Welcome to Think for Yourself Clubhouse. My name is Bill Martin, and I'm going to have a discussion today with my confreres here. On my left is Dennis Reinhart, a longtime co-host, and on my right is Aggie Martin. I've known her for a few years. What we're going to try to do today is talk a little bit about policies that the Democrat Party might talk together with perhaps middle-of-the-roaders or Republicans about policies that affect our community. Dennis, you wanted to talk about affordability, and I've got some subheads down here I'm just going to rattle off, and then I'm going to let you carry on, okay?
Okay.
Affordability, some of the aspects of it are housing. Around our parts here in Jackson County, we worry about public transportation. We worry
Housing
about
too, for that matter.
worry about housing, transportation, child care, and adult education. We've had some interviews with folks in adult education, Rye Grand, Buckeye Hills. Wonderful programs, in my opinion, underutilized. But Dennis, what do you have to say?
When I look at affordability, people talk about it in general terms, but there's some accessible things that can be done if the political will is there. And so much of it is tied to our energy, our utilities, and our fuel sources. When you talk about the new data centers, one of the things they're going to do is start generating power again by coal. That is the most expensive form of fuel that can be used. It's expensive to transport, it's expensive to get these power plants going up again. So if you're generating electricity by that, these data centers are using the same amount of electricity as a small city. That's going to affect cost for consumers also. And we stop.
The costs are spread out among all the ratepayers.
It's there, and there are alternate energy sources that we can use. And when we talked about there were investments in wind and solar, you look at battery technology, and those things were put on hold. People need to realize that's going to lower cost as far as affordability, because wind and solar is cheaper. Natural gas, if it's done right, is cheaper to use as an electric source. Our utility companies are making sky-high profits, record profits. There needs to be caps put on things to protect the public as far as profit caps. And I know that may not sound good to a lot of people, but you've got to protect consumers. This country runs on diesel, and as diesel costs go up, then the price of food goes up, the price of other products in the store goes up. You're going to need to start looking for a way to be less dependent on the cost overseas, the world market, and sources of energy that we can use for transportation, as far as our trains, as far as our trucks, and as far as people just going to work, the cost that's going to happen, because this fossil fuel dependency on what's going on in the Middle East and Iran and everything, it's not going to be reeled back in. There'll be times it's going to spike up, and that's going to affect our affordability. It affects us heating our homes. It affects us driving to work. So, if I was to say something to the Democratic Party, if you were able to be in a position to make these decisions, you've got to have an energy policy for the United States that makes it an affordable energy policy, because it's connected to so many things. It's even connected to fertilizer for our fields and everything. So we've got to be less dependent. We've got to take initiatives to develop technologies. And that's the other thing. It can help our economies. It could help a place like Jackson or some other place in southern Ohio to have a battery factory, to have a solar panel factory. We've got a situation where we have Route 32 and we have 35 crossing. Why are we not developing that sort of thing? You have the ability with these new energy technologies to do that. If you made the right decisions, you would say the people of southern Ohio, they're the ones that need help here. These miners that have been displaced, they need help here. They need to be retrained. We're giving all these subsidies to these people that are the owners of coal mine companies. We're giving them to fossil fuel. Take that and invest it where it needs to be. These guys are making record profits anyways. But take Jackson, take Athens. Athens is where, you've got 33, you've got 50 Crossing, Marietta, you've got places in southern Ohio. Build these green energy type factories in those places to provide employment for people. You could do that if you did those things.
And there would be less pollution to improve our situation with regard to climate change and wildfires and all of that.
The other thing that ties into affordability is healthcare and healthcare reform. Those are the two things that you could take on, the energy thing and the healthcare. I don't see how we're going to get by without having some form of universal health care. And I was telling Bill, I was reading where somebody said, hey, do you want to pay $2,000 more in taxes to be able to afford health care, or $8,000 a year for sky-high insurance premiums? People have to be convinced of that. There's also a monopolization going on in healthcare where you have big, huge healthcare companies that are conglomerating these hospitals. Without competition, you're not going to have lower prices either for healthcare. I mean, those are things that, if I was to tell the Democrats, I'd say that those are things you need to target as far as affordability.
There are some smaller ideas as well in our particular community that I would like to see. For example, with housing, I read someplace if the zoning code were changed to add duplexes, which is two houses in one lot, kind of connected together. Everybody knows what a duplex is, instead of single unit housing. That would open up a lot of housing opportunities for people. Transportation, we're just coming into county public transportation, and I hope to have an interview with Lisa Warrens soon. She showed me a picture of her van. They're getting vans to run transportation routes. The idea being to allow people to get to work, to get the educational opportunities, shopping, to the doctor. Child care, I think if there were one thing that I would like to see, I would like to tax rich people and use the money to set up child care centers, good, well-funded, well-staffed, professional child care centers, so that people, again, can go to work, go to the doctor, get adult education, improve themselves. That's, I think, a formula for the kinds of things that Jackson County can do. Not as big an idea as some of these others we've floated, but in my opinion, certainly workable.
Both spouses could work. Instead of say that they were working at a lower wage job, if both the mother and father could work, then that doubles that family's income, and that brings them so much higher out of that struggle with that poverty level and those sorts of things.
Well, you wish you had high quality jobs that paid real good wages, but if you don't, and you've got to get through life, then let's get some help down here to help folks get through life. And adult education, I'd like to see Buckeye Hills with their adult education program work at capacity. I'd like to see Rye Grand adult education work at capacity. Get those nurses out there, get plumbers out there.
Yeah, and you would wish there would be some way to integrate things where you could really guide a kid along in school that you knew came from an impoverished background, and you could guide them into these programs better to help them have a better life. And that would be part of your school system,
It would be a good idea if you could determine what their interests are and their form of intelligence is, what they're good at